Greetings, Seekers. This is the March 12th issue of the Spiritual Tetralogy Audio Newsletter. My name is Joe Figueres, and this is a weekly update of elevated guidance and integration and embodiment practices. Welcome, and thank you for listening. This week, I want to talk about eclipse season and why everyone is saying it's going to be so big and chaotic. We'll get into it, and we'll figure that out. You can figure out if it's going to be big and chaotic for you or not. I have also created a live skill building workshop called Align and Embody. It's an intuitive approach to receiving the answers that you need during really challenging times. And that happens live on March 27th at 6 p.m. EST via Zoom. Okay, I'll talk a lot more about that. Next week, I'm launching a new mini series in this newsletter, similar to the numerology mini-series. But this one's going to be called The Future of Spiritual Evolution and Embodying Higher Consciousness, right? I want to talk to you about what you need to know when Neptune moves into Aries on March 30th. And this week's hot take is on the topic of the word ego and why I just kind of don't really like to use that word. I'll talk about it. Now, before we get into the actual content in the newsletter, I just wanted to give you a heads up to pay attention to any mentions of the words embodiment and quantum shifting. I mentioned embodiment a couple times. Be cognizant of those words as you scroll the socials. They really are the new buzzwords and absolutely will get overused by people. Now, the reason that they're a buzzword is because people that are connected, intuitives that do this work, we're getting these downloads from spirit, and they're saying it's time to now talk about embodiment. It's time to talk about quantum shifting. It's time to talk about alignment. But everybody's getting these downloads, and it's just I just really wanted to bring this to people's attention. Quantum embodiment is really badass. I've spent the last 10 months studying and practicing it. And what I found that to actually make a quantum shift takes legitimate embodied or sort of embodiment of subconscious reprogramming. That means you have to change your thinking. And we all know how difficult that is. So no one can do this work for you with energy work, spells, or any other sort of magical flipped switch. So just be sure to be discerning and pay attention to the quality and value of the content that you come across in order to make sure that you resonate. Okay, first section of the audio newsletter is called Listen, and that's just the free audio version download of this newsletter. You click it and you can listen. The next section is called Resonant Frequencies, Conversations That Shift. I've just listed 4 different audio conversations. There's one I had with Brenda Winkle of the Your Yes Filled Life podcast. And she is absolutely lovely. You'll see her mentioned more in this newsletter. And so you'll have to go to the newsletter to actually access those conversations, but you just click the pictures and then it'll take you right to the page. The second podcast that I was a guest on is called Crazy Connected with Bridget Leroy. Another fine, lovely human being. And we hit on all sorts of things in this conversation. What's interesting about this one is that I shared my journey of being an empath from a young child, navigating a challenging childhood, discovering, sort of my awakening after hitting quote unquote rock bottom in my 40s. And then we talked about how the Akashic records are, accessible to everyone and really vital to understanding your spiritual truths and life paths. So click the image there to visit that conversation. And that's a short one. That was like 30 minutes. The next conversation I had talking to the lovely Jennifer Della Quadri. She is a spiritual leader and subtle shifts coach. And you're going to want to take a listen to this. This is about an hour. It's a YouTube video. And she's going to tell us how she managed to get her entire family to move from California to Washington. When she told me, I legit was like, oh, what? But they're living the dream over there, folks. So just in the newsletter, click the video to play. And then there's also, I've linked you to her website if anyone is looking for her specific type of coaching. The last one is, I hope everybody is really excited for. I don't know how many podcast listeners I have crossed over here, but Fiorelise, the Esoterics podcast has been on a break while Fiorelise and I work on other projects. I have said that a couple times. But we recently took some time to catch up with each other. And we recorded it and we decided to share it with our listeners. And we kind of knew that we probably would share it, but it's a full-on conversation. There's no editing, there's no intro music, and there's no outro music or anything like that. We just start out with like, hi. And then we just start talking. So it's just a really fun way to catch up with us, find out what we've been doing, what's going on, hear us bitch about politics. And because I know you've really missed that. And just sort of, get a heads up about maybe when we'll start the podcast back up, which you probably won't get that from there because I don't remember talking about it. All right. First article is cognizance. And that's the section of just knowing. What do we want to know? What are the things we want to know? And the article is titled, Welcome to the Eclipse Portal. The blood moon eclipse will fast track our timeline. And this signifies the closing of chapters and tying up loose ends. It is a shift, possibly quantum, but definitely impactful. We are going through a shift. And wow. Can it feel hard to let go and trust in your plan? It can be hard to know that where you are is exactly where you're meant to be. But take a moment to tap within. Thanks to your astral rhythm, your intuition is high right now, and trusting your gut is more powerful than ever. All of the astral pros I talk to say this full moon is one of the most intense of the year, accelerating whatever chapter or phase you're going through. What I can tell you is that it's definitely time for cosmic shifts to realign us with our original Akashic soul blueprint. You know, I work in the Akashic records, and that has been coming out of that for a long time. Why? Because it's time to move to the next level. Whether we're ready or not, the earth is on it. We are in an ascension lifetime, and the earth is on an evolutionary schedule. I've been talking about that quantum shift for a few issues now, I think since like last fall, actually. So if you have read them, you know. If not, read the back issues, and I talk about this. So take this next phase seriously. Do the inner mindset work that needs to happen in your life. This is what's going to help you quantum shift. If you need help, I am here. Reach out. I have some really great tools and practices and services to help you. Okay. Again, I've been studying this for about 10 months, and I've been going through my own quantum up-leveling and shift for 2 years. So I really can help. Why eclipse season is so potent? Well, this is what I've learned. Eclipses bring the fucking heat, okay? In the form of sudden shifts, epiphanies, revelations, major turning points. Eclipses bring karmic events that accelerate growth, and they can feel intense. Emotions run high because this already big energy is magnified. And that means it activates destiny and karmic patterns, your north and south node stuff. And it brings an end to old cycles and patterns because the new must begin. And it does so in a way that feels chaotic and scary. It's the Tower card. And, we don't like the Tower card. Humans don't like that. We want to make changes on our own terms in a way that feels safe. And the problem is wanting to feel safe or in control is often tied to the idea of being an ego. And honestly, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole, not here, but keep listening and you'll hear my thoughts on ego, where it started and how it got twisted. Anyway, back to this week's energy and how to work it. Okay. Solar eclipses happen during new moons and can initiate beginnings and fresh starts. Okay. That's one Aries energy. Lunar eclipses take place during full moons and focus on completions and endings. That's 9 Scorpio Pisces energy. Eclipses will reveal truths through epiphanies, which make them powerful catalysts for a shift. Shifts happen when you have experienced awareness, integration, and alignment. Eclipses are connected to our personal nodes and are intrinsically linked to our personal growth as well as collective growth. So as I say, astrology is our personal algorithm to keep us on track for personal and spiritual evolutions. Okay. So 2025 eclipse season and your numerology personal month numbers. More on how to work with this. So eclipse energy can unfold over 3 to 6 months. It can take that long. I don't know that it personally does. I mean, honestly, when it's over, I'm happy. But bringing gradual yet powerful shifts is also a really lovely thing about it, right? And so it doesn't feel so chaotic. So while events in your life may be sudden, the resolution or transformation can encompass several numerology personal months. For example, I am currently in a personal month of 2, okay? And I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and again starting in 1, okay? That's March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and November, okay? The 2025 eclipse season unfolds from March through September, and then October through December will provide the space for integration and shifting as we enter the energy of a new universal year, 1 of new beginnings, and we'll enter our unique personal year number. Mine is a 9 for transformation. So, do you see how connected numerology and astrology are as the engine for your soul's experience? Your personal month numbers, I won't say always, but typically work really beautifully within eclipse seasons. Also, if you're a manifesting generator in human design, this concept will kind of light you up because it's what man-gens do. We connect dots in our brain. And if it doesn't connect, if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Joe, that's cool too, because it's like I said, it's a man-gen thing. All right. So the bottom line is that during eclipse season, the primary focus should be to surrender the need to control and just relax into trusting the unfolding process. Honestly, resistance will only bring stress. It's not going to allow you to lean into the unknown, which is kind of the whole point of this eclipse season in the Virgo-Pisces axis, and then the very specific things that it asks of you. Leaning into the unknown, okay? Virgo North Node and a Pisces South Node, you are growth through discipline. It is a journey from the vague and unclear to the detailed and definitive. You're going to want to release asking, why is this happening to me? You're going to want to release withdrawing, escapism, oversensitivity, inaction, and being vague. Okay? Get rid of that. Let it go. But you're going to want to embrace asking. What can I learn from this? How can I be in service? How can I look at my routines and details and structures and plans and being present and analyzing and categorizing and all of those things? That's what you're going to want to embrace. Okay, that's Virgo North Node and Pisces South Node. Now, if you're a Pisces North Node or a Virgo South Node, your growth is through spirituality, a journey from rigidity to flow. You're going to release perfectionism, control, overly analytical thinking, clinging to the material, criticizing yourself and others. That's a big one. And then, of course, worry, obsession, inflexibility, all those things. Get rid of them, release them, let them go. Do the work around those. And you're going to want to embrace uncharted waters, emotions, faith, spirituality, healing, openness, non-judgment, all of those things. Meditation, welcoming change. So, depending on if you're a Virgo North Node if you're a Virgo North Node, Pisces South Node, or a Pisces North Node and a Virgo South Node, you're going to approach this season a little bit differently, but your foundations are going to be the same, similar. Now, grab your chart. Have your chart handy, pause this, and I'm going to show you how it might impact you and how you can check it, okay? Okay, so the This eclipse, it's a total lunar eclipse in Virgo. It's at 23 degrees, and it's going to affect personal placements from 19 to 29 degrees in Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, okay? And this could show you where perfectionism has been holding you back. So take a look at your routines, your work habits, and your self-care practices, and ask yourself where you're making life too complicated, where you're trying to control it, where you're trying to, create something that it's not necessary to create. It's more going to be you're creating something out of fear, right? Okay. Next, find 24 degrees of Virgo in your chart and identify which house this degree falls in to determine the area of life where you're going to be activated. Okay. So first house is, of course, it's not of course, but first house is self-image, identity, personal goals. Second house is finances, self-worth, and material stability. Third house is communication, learning, and sibling relationships. And you can look this up on the interwebs, right? You can Google like sixth house. What does that mean? What are the themes? All that. But there is a different theme for every house. I will talk about the March 29th partial solar eclipse in Aries at 9 degrees in the next issue, because we also have another eclipse phase coming in September on the 7th and the 21st. So there's a lot more to come, but it's definitely, this is the time to learn how to look at your chart and go, okay, how is this going to impact me? So you're going to look at your personal placements, you're going to look at your degrees, and you're going to look at in which house the degrees fall in your chart to find out. All right, now here's the other thing that I want to let you know about eclipse season is that eclipses, they realign you with your Akashic soul blueprint. So during 2025's eclipses, there's a couple things I want you to keep in mind. Actually, there's more than a couple. The first thing is that unexpected shifts are common, so stay flexible and open to new opportunities that come into your life. So if you're trying to do this thing and this is the thing and you're like, I'm going to visualize and manifest this thing, and you're super, super, super focused and detailed and structured, during an eclipse, I would just sort of say, all right, I'm just going to give it a rest for a minute, a couple days for this season or whatever. And I'm just going to stay open because maybe something's going to come in that's going to make me shift, that focus. And if I'm so focused on the focus, I'm never going to be able to see the shift when it comes in. The next thing is to have practices to sort of calm your nervous system. EMDR, tapping, breath work, walks in nature. That's my personal favorite. Taking Hollis for a walk. Have some of those handy. I also really enjoy EMDR. It's soothing to me for some reason. Trust the process, because the growth in the lesson tends to reveal itself to you after the frickin' tower has come down. Lean into it if you can, but just trust the process. And it's not easy. We're like, no, I want things the way that I want them, but trust that process. I am here to guide you through this. Seriously, so connect with me. I offer several different ways to support you. I've linked it in the newsletter, and you can always just go to my website or just send me a message and say, hey, how can you support me during this? This is what I'm dealing with. What do you have available to support me? And I can recommend some things. Also, I rebranded the Esoterics community on Facebook and to call it the Spiritual Tetralogy Facebook group. So it was recently reactivated, rebranded, and it now offers a space to talk about all the good stuff in this newsletter. Go there for resources and links and all that stuff, workshops. So that's just sort of like the website of this newsletter, if you will. In the newsletter, there's a link to join the group, and you can always just search in groups on Facebook for Spiritual Tetralogy. All right, so let's talk about that Align and Embody skill building workshop that I launched. I'm so excited about this, and I'm really excited to teach it because just all of these amazing things were coming to me, and I'm like, oh my God, right? They need to know that, and they need to know that. I'm going to take an intuitive approach to receiving the answers you need during challenges. Okay, so again, this is a virtual workshop. It takes place on Thursday, March 27th at 6 p.m. PST. I know on the East Coast that's 9 p.m. and it might be difficult for mamas or people that like to get to bed early, but there is a replay link and a downloadable handout if you cannot make it, but do sign up for it. It's only $23. I really want to make it accessible, and I think that that's a really good price for what we're going to learn. Now, here's what I want to say about this workshop. I don't have all the answers. I really don't, but I went through my own personal transformation during the last eclipse axis, which was Aries and Libra. And that took place between March of 2023 through, just recently, right? We just had a recent something in Pisces, or maybe that's coming up. Anyway, I say 2023 and 2025. And let me tell you, I learned so much. It completely transformed my life in so many different areas. Mostly, I learned what not to do when experiencing an up level or transformation, major transformation, deliberate transformation, universe sort of forced transformation. And I learned how to do things in a way that supports feeling like I have solid practices to sort of pull me out of fear and frustration and into personal choice. Okay, I'm going to make a choice here. And I learned to integrate and embody that. And that's why integration and embodiment is so important. It's not easy, but it's what actually creates a shift in you. So I want to share this information with as many of you as possible to give you the tools to move through this next eclipse axis or any future axis or any challenging situation. These tools really are very universal. And I keep hearing from my clients and my students that you all are so tired of feeling like your current practices just aren't making a difference anymore. And it's frustrating because you're ready for the next phase of your life. Well, eclipses bring shifts, epiphanies, revelations, and intense growth. So every workshop I hold in 2025 will meet you where you're at, whether you're really tapped into your intuitive abilities or if you struggle to connect to what comes through. All right, so let me just give you a brief example of some of the energy we're going to explore in this workshop and a peek into some of the programming that will shift with a few effective practices. All right. We're going to talk about abandonment and rejection because Virgo Pisces eclipse is going to trigger these three things: abandonment and rejection, powerlessness and lack of control, and feelings of unworthiness. And those are some of the most frustrating, deeply reaching programming that we have. So I'm going to give you some really good tools to reach some sort of understanding that you're able to integrate and embody with consistent practice. There's a spiritual approach for those tapped in, and then there's a spiritual approach for those who are learning how to tap in. Okay, so let's start with abandonment and rejection. It's the fear of being alone, unchosen, discarded. And what we do is we seek external validation for our worthiness. Okay, so we'll talk about why abandonment and rejection supports sovereignty for those that are tapped in, that don't have a challenge accessing, or basically for, advanced intuitives and channels. But for those that are like, listen, I need to learn this. I need to learn how to do this. That is the spiritual approach for those who are learning. And that's going to be how to reframe rejection, how to reframe it. It's not simplified. It's simply something that doesn't take a bunch of, you don't have to be tapped in to understand that, basically. The next thing is powerlessness and lack of control, the fear of uncertainty, feeling at the mercy of external circumstances, difficulty surrendering. That's a big one. That's going to be a big one because situations change around you. Your external changes where your internal really is seeking just that safety. And so a spiritual approach for those tapped in is how true power comes from your alignment. And the spiritual approach for those learning is to how to develop over your inner state, which is a really fun practice. And of course, remember, I'm an intuitive, and this is my life, my job. So I think anything intuitive is fun. You might be like, that doesn't sound like fun to me. Feelings of unworthiness is the third one, and that is a deep belief that you're not enough, that you don't deserve success, love, joy, whatever. The spiritual approach for those tapped in would be why your worth was never conditional. And the spiritual approach for those learning is why worth is not proven through achievement. So we're going to do some fun things, connect to your higher self. I'm going to have everybody open up their own Akashic record. I've made it my mission to make the Akashic records accessible. So pretty much anything I do, teach, whatever, you're going to learn how to tap into that energy, because that is your energy. And I know it seems deep, but I think you're all ready for next level practices. So that's why I created this workshop, to give you evolved tools to handle all the changes, fears, challenges, and upgrades this eclipse season absolutely will activate in your life over the next 10 months and then into 2026. Why do you need evolved tools for this next phase? Because you are already going through an up level. Pluto in Aquarius has ushered in a mass awakening that requires structure, clarity, accessible pathways for integration and embodiment. And here's the thing, you're changing. So your tools and practices need to change too. Without the right materials and knowledge, awakening and shifting can feel really overwhelming, like a flood of insights without this container to hold them. So as you shift into new levels of awareness, you need the skills to interpret your own awakening experiences instead of feeling lost, to navigate emotional and energetic shifts without getting wrapped up in fear or bypassing. You need the skills to deepen your self-leadership, to embody wisdom rather than seeking answers externally. You need the skills to integrate gifts into daily life and meaningful service. That's really, really important, because I believe that the actual daily integration of these things is what leads to embodiment, stronger and stronger and stronger, which eventually changes your beliefs. And then finally, you're going to need the skills to create and nurture community, to anchor that higher consciousness through collaborations and all of that stuff. And you're seeing that out in the world, where people, are like, it's time to create community, and it's time to support each other within those communities. So thank you in advance to those of you who are like, man, $23, I'm going to reserve my spot right now. I know there are a lot of options out there, so I genuinely appreciate you choosing me. And I'm really excited to get into this information with you, because it was really fun to channel it and, get more information through tarot and oracle and automatic writing. And it was a fun course to put together. Okay, hot take time. Sometimes it'll be random and sometimes it'll be specific. This one is where I talk about ego. I don't use that word, and here's why, okay? And I don't want to sound like I'm going off on a rant, but I did get really passionate about this because it doesn't freaking make any sense to me. All right. I dislike the word ego because it carries this energy of blame. Okay, like there's some faulty part of us that we need to overcome in order to be worthy of love or success or spiritual growth. But what if nothing in us is wrong at all? What if every part, our instincts, our survival patterns, our desires, our programming, are simply an aspect of our specific and unique human incarnation experience, and that these are all meant to be integrated rather than rejected, okay? And here's where my Capricorn logic calls bullshit. And it was my Capricorn that was like, hold on a minute. Let's rethink this. The idea that we must transcend the ego, it often feeds the same unworthiness it claims to free us from. Why are we told we are perfect as is, but then also told to drop the ego because it's no good, right? Don't be egoic, don't be selfish, all of those things that comes with the ego. And I know that I see things this way because of my work in the Akashic Records and in the life between life phase. When I'm in the records, helping souls create their own soul blueprints in preparation for reincarnation. Like, I know that I'm working both sides of the coin here, right? It's helped me see the necessity to work with the full self, the conscious and the unconscious, the fractal and the higher self, the victim and the empowered, all without labels that imply deficiency. This is why I love numerology, because it shows us that there are no character flaws. There are only character traits that may be out of alignment or out of balance. That's why, one of the reasons that I love numerology, but it basically, there's no wrong numbers. And so when that translates to us as souls, there are no wrong souls. The word ego has become weaponized, I feel, to shame people out of their natural experiences. We don't need to transcend or overcome any part of ourselves to be worthy of abundance or expansion or love. Every single part of us serves a purpose, and that includes the fucking aspects we've been taught to judge. So instead of fighting within ourselves, what if we just practice deeper self-acceptance and integration? What if we just did that instead? What if we said, I'm not going to worry about ego. I'm just going to accept myself. Now, I'm not saying you can be an asshole and then be like, listen, I accept myself. I mean, that sounds like something I would laugh at, but also I'd be like, no, that's not going to fly. So use some discernment there. You understand what I'm saying. You're fine the way you are. This word, it just causes people to, sort of beat themselves up. But one of the things when I was thinking about this, I'm like, all right, but where did this all get twisted? How did this get the way that it is, right? So let's talk about where the current negative concept started and how it got twisted. So Buddhism doesn't treat the ego as something inherently bad. Okay, but rather as a misunderstanding of ourselves that leads us to suffering. Their teachings encourage awareness of how our attachment to anything, that whole, why can't I have that? It creates emotions of lack and pain. And they see the ego as a construct of the mind. It's basically our learned thoughts, experiences, our conditioned patterns, right? They see the ego as the construct. And that construct determines our beliefs and what we're capable of. I have a quote that I channeled the other day, and it said, I release all limits. I determine the level at which I am able to succeed. And those two sort of support each other. Our mind determines our beliefs, the ego determines our beliefs and what we're capable of. So, rather than condemning the ego, Buddhism teaches mindfulness, compassion, and non-attachment. The idea of ego being bad mostly comes from a mix of like Western psychology, misinterpretation of Eastern spirituality, religious judgment, of course, moralism, and then patriarchal bullshit is what I call it. So let's talk about a couple of those because it's actually really interesting. All right, so Freud, he was neutral about ego, right? He introduced the concept of the ego in psychology as part of the psyche's structure, right? So he said, id is your primal instincts and desires. The ego is sort of the mediator between the desires and the reality, and then the superego is your moral compass that's shaped by society. He never saw the ego as something bad. It was simply a part of that which helps us navigate reality, right? But as psychology sort of spread and pop culture started to reducing ego to mean arrogance, self-importance, or something that needs to be overcome, that's when the term ego started sort of it started to shift, twist, right? So Eastern teachings, Hinduism and Buddhism, they don't really talk about ego in the way we do in the West. Instead, they explore the illusion of a separate self, and they teach that clinging to a rigid self-identity leads to suffering. But they don't frame the ego as bad. The goal is awareness and liberation. It's not self-condemnation. So again, it's like, integration, understanding, holding, nurturing, accepting, and then, integrate it, which then liberates us. And while these teachings, when they reached the West, people started interpreting, letting go of the ego as erasing it or defeating it, rather than simply seeing through its illusions. it turned into a moral struggle instead of like this path to wisdom. So that kind of sucks because, it's a good example of how Eastern teachings, fundamentally, Eastern and Western spiritual teachings have a lot in common, but they can be twisted. Let's see here. What else we got? We've got, my favorite, organized religion and the war against free thinkers. Christianity has long emphasized humility, self-denial, overcoming the flesh, and this often got tangled up with the idea of ego all the time. The concept of original sin already set people up to believe that part of themselves were inherently flawed or unworthy. And when the idea of ego rolled into the conversation, religious leaders used it to amplify like this pre-existing guilt and punishment framework, right? Listen, babies are not sinners, for fuck's sakes. I will die on that hill. The concept of original sin, I can't even tell you how many religious arguments I've gotten into people about that. It doesn't do any good. I don't even know why I waste my time. But all right, now here's the last one, and this one is the one that annoys me the most. It's the New Age and self-help industry weaponized ego. Okay, and you'll see this probably the most. Modern spirituality took the term ego and turned it into a scapegoat and a way to spiritually bypass. The ego became the villain responsible for every bad habit, every block to abundance, every moment of doubt, whatever. Instead of helping people integrate all parts of themselves, self-help culture promoted ego death as some kind of enlightened fucking achievement, reinforcing the idea that parts of us are bad and must be destroyed before we can be worthy. You know what? Let me be very clear. This is toxic positivity. All right. Now, however, I don't believe that everyone who teaches the ego concept is toxic. That's not what I'm saying. I wholly believe, though, that modern and contemporary spirituality is undergoing an evolution of its own, and we are fully moving into next level revolutionized teachings on very traditional topics. Consciousness just needs to catch up and be embodied first, okay? Pluto in Aquarius has brought innovation and revolution to the forefront, and that includes outdated spiritual ideologies. And the truth is, ego is a simple communication tool, no different than our intuition, okay? The ego isn't a sin or something to destroy. It's simply a mechanism that helps us function in a three-dimensional world. It keeps us safe. It gives us, and if we give it a voice, if we listen to it, and we're mindful about the actions that we take as a result of that voice, then we're acting in the same capacity that we would with our intuition. So how is the ego voice different than the intuition voice? It's not. We try not to let it drive our bus, fears and doubts and all those things, but sometimes it does. The same with intuition, right? We ask for its input, we listen for its voice, we try to make decisions based on its guidance. Sometimes we decide from fear. Do we then curse our own intuition and say, that's it, intuition is bad, it's evil, and it needs to be abolished? No. The real work is not overcoming ego, but understanding it, recognizing when it's operating from fear, when it's trying to protect us, and when we can loosen our grip without feeling threatened. So anyway, like I said, it's a hot take. I went down a rabbit hole. The whole ego is bad narrative is mostly a mix of Western psychology taken out of context and spiritual teachings that have been lost in translation and good old-fashioned religious guilt. So, I'm not here to tell you or those who believe in ego are wrong. Not at all. I think that Buddhism is a beautiful, beautiful philosophy, ideology, religion, whatever you want to call it. I'm simply sharing how I've connected a few dots over the years that showed me why I've never jived with the concept of ego and why I don't bring it into my practices or my sessions with my clients. We never talk about ego. Plus, it's constantly, it's honestly a patriarchal narrative. And I just don't feel like I'm going to support that. Not anymore. Not today. Not these days. I'm just not going to support that narrative. let me give you a practice to find your truth about ego, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take this topic into your next meditation, and you're going to ask your higher self what you need to know about how it applies to your soul journey, and just see what comes up. Feel into it. Do whatever meditation practices you engage in, and just take that question in there, that query in there. If you know how to open up your Akashic record, I, of course, absolutely recommend doing that first, and then just see what comes up, and then please share. I would love to hear your experiences. All right, next section is the soul expansion, and the question that I ask you: what if your biggest challenges were simply meant to guide you to your next level? What would you explore? And then I give you a nice little library of sessions. When you're ready for clarity on the next phase of your life, when you're ready to know yourself at deeper levels, when you're ready to explore your soul blueprint, when you're ready to explore the soul agreements that you have with the people in your life, when you're ready to align with the soul of your spiritual business. That's the soul entrepreneur, or the spiritual entrepreneur reading. And it's one of my favorites. And I wish that you all would book that more. And then when you're ready to connect with your allies in spirit. So there's lots of opportunities for you when you're ready. And then, of course, mentorship is back. I'm so excited to support Neptune's move into Aries. I'm being called back into mentorship. I really tried to move into group teaching, but this is where the universe wants me. So I've got quantum empowerment sessions. Actually, I don't think that I'm calling them anymore. I'm calling them quantum embodiment sessions, and it's a mentorship for elevated integration and alignment. This is actually a private and customized mentorship. It's 12 sessions, and it's not necessarily 12 weeks. It can be 12 sessions, so it can be, you can take it up to a year if you wanted to do one a month. But because we're currently experiencing that ascension lifetime, meant to bring about a transformative shift in personal and collective reality, so the way that we connect is going to change. The tools and resources and knowledge that you need are going to change, and you're going to be up-leveling. Okay. So it's basically a mentorship it's a private session mentorships, designed for those of you who are actively committed to expand your ability to co-create in, a one-on-one setting. Co-creation isn't about manifestation. Co-creation is saying, I see what I'm experiencing now. I understand what I need to learn from it. Here are my practices for integration, somatics, meditation, breath work, all of the different practices that help me, come back to my center. And now I can receive the information from, channeling or intuitive inquiries using my intuitive capabilities. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I can align and then embody, or first align and then integrate and then embody, and boom, there I am. I'm in my desired quantum reality. So that's what this teaches you. And it's an individualized mentorship. There's lots. I can just talk about this forever. So if you go to the Quantum Embodiment Mentorship on my website, you'll see all of the details about that. So please do that. I would love to start working with people on that one. Hold on, sorry, my website refreshed right in front of me. I completely lost my spot. And then I have an Akashic mentoring session. And this is just a one session, or you can buy packages, 3 packages or 6 packages or whatever. And how it's different from previous Akashic workshops that I've given is that we're going to start using 12D energy and consciousness for next level expansion. And I worked with 12D energy way back in like 2016 and 2017, and it was just too much for people to handle. And so I just stopped working with it. And I've been working with it for a couple years now. But yeah, with this new upgrade, I'm going to activate, we're going to talk about what it is first. I'm not going to just activate you to 12D energy, right? But for those that I work with that are ready for it, you're going to get a 12D activation. I will tell you that it took me back in 2016 from reading tarot to being clairaudient. Like, that was the shift. So just know, we'll talk about it. If you want to talk about it, find out what it is, reach out to me, send me an email. Let me see the last thing that I want to talk about. No, the next to the last thing is I still have the soul shifting guidance download. Check it out. It is right now with an editor being edited because it's actually going to be the foundation for a future book. And those of you that purchase it, I will send you the updated version when it comes in. It's $11. If nothing, it's a good way to find out what quantum shifting is and what it takes to actually create that shift. And then the last thing is the digital download library. Everything is just $11. And I have a meditation for embodiment and co-creation. I have one to activate access and query your own Akashic wisdom. I have one to release or identify the old stories that you're carrying within, but it moves you through the 12 houses of astrology, which is always kind of cool. I have one for consciousness expansion. To move through the 12 levels of consciousness. This is not 12D, but this is the 12 levels of consciousness, which will give you an idea of what goes on in each level. And this meditation just tends to expand people for some reason. People love this one. And then I also have one called 13 Chakras, and that's just clearing and balancing your all 13 of your chakras, your soul star at your feet, your earth star at your feet, all the way up to, I believe it's called like the galactic, if I remember correctly. And that is this week's newsletter, the audio version of this newsletter. Thanks for giving me a little of your time, and I wish you empowerment, inner peace, and a little bit of paradigm shifting rebellion, if that's what you're looking for. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, whatever, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.